How does someone stand up and do the right thing when they know that they're going to face great opposition?
You won't believe what Rebecca Lamb just revealed about Joni and Doug. The Daystar family is torn apart in a shocking war of words, and secrets long buried are exploding into the open. Alliances shattered, loyalties questioned, and the fight for control is fiercer than ever. This is the truth they didn't want you to hear. Get ready for jaw-dropping drama as Rebecca breaks her silence and changes everything you thought you knew. The Daystar family has always appeared as a picture-perfect symbol of faith, unity, and dedication. On the surface, they were the ideal Christian family, leading a ministry that reached millions around the world, sharing messages of hope and inspiration. But behind the polished smiles and public appearances, there was a hidden battle that few outside the family ever knew about. Rebecca Lamb, the daughter of Marcus and Joni Lamb, carried a heavy burden, a secret that weighed on her heart every day. For years, she and her husband JW lived in silence, trapped by a powerful non-disclosure agreement that prevented them from speaking out about something deeply wrong within their family. This was not just about protecting the family's reputation or the ministry's public image. It was a battle over truth, justice, and the courage to do what was right in the face of overwhelming pressure. The secret involved allegations of abuse against Rebecca's young niece, Baby Lamb, at the hands of a trusted family member closely connected to the ministry. The family member, Pete, had earned the trust of the Lambs, making the situation even more painful and complex. Rebecca and JW witnessed disturbing behavior but were forced into silence. The non-disclosure agreement wasn't just a typical confidentiality contract. It was an ironclad barrier that covered not only business matters but deeply personal and painful family issues. It locked away the truth and left Rebecca and JW feeling isolated and powerless. The pressure to keep quiet came not only from legal bindings but from within the family itself. Rebecca's sister Rachel allegedly warned her that speaking out could cost them their home and financial security. This threat cast a dark shadow over Rebecca's conscience, forcing her to weigh the safety of her family against the moral imperative to protect her niece and expose the truth. The emotional toll was enormous. She was caught between loyalty to her family and the need to confront a painful reality. Every day, Rebecca lived with the knowledge of what was happening and the pain of being unable to speak up. What made this hidden battle even more devastating was the fear of fracturing the very family and ministry they had all worked so hard to build. The Daystar Network was not just a business, it was a spiritual beacon for millions, and the thought of scandal was terrifying. Yet the cost of silence was even greater. It chipped away at Rebecca's faith and sense of self, leaving her to wrestle with guilt, fear, and loneliness. This private war behind the Daystar family's public image reveals a story of courage restrained, truths hidden, and the heavy price of protecting appearances. It's a reminder that even the strongest facades can mask deep, painful battles. The story behind the Daystar family's silence is a heartbreaking and complex one, filled with layers of pain, fear, and betrayal. At the center of this turmoil are shocking allegations that rocked the foundation of the Lamb family and their sprawling ministry. These were not just rumors or whispers, but serious accusations involving the abuse of Baby Lamb, a young child in the family's care. The alleged perpetrator was Pete, a man trusted by the family and closely connected to the Daystar network. This betrayal was unimaginable, a threat coming from within, where protection and love were supposed to be strongest. Rebecca Lamb and her husband JW found themselves in the eye of this storm. They witnessed disturbing behavior and signs that something was terribly wrong with Baby Lamb. But as they tried to act, they were met not with support or understanding but with a legal chain that tied their voices. A non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, imposed by Joni Lamb and the Daystar leadership sealed their lips. This was not an ordinary NDA designed just to protect business interests or confidential information. It was a powerful tool used to silence them on matters that went far beyond the professional, matters that affected the safety and well-being of a child. The scope of the NDA was sweeping and suffocating. It barred Rebecca and JW from discussing any details of the abuse allegations, any internal family disputes, or the network's handling of the situation. This legal gag order placed them in a terrifying bind. To speak out was to risk lawsuits, financial ruin, and the destruction of their own lives and reputations. To stay silent was to bear the crushing weight of knowing that a child was suffering, with no way to intervene publicly or seek help. The NDA was not just a piece of paper. It was a prison of silence, forcing them into compliance and isolation. What made the situation even more unbearable was the personal pressure layered on top of the legal threats. Reports say that Rebecca's own sister, Rachel, warned her that breaking the silence could cost them their home. This chilling threat amplified the fear and confusion, turning the choice to speak out into a near impossibility. The stakes were staggering. It wasn't just about protecting a family name or a ministry. It was about survival. Survival of relationships, financial security, and personal safety. Meanwhile, the family's internal dynamics grew more strained. Jonathan and Susie Lamb, other members deeply involved in trying to protect baby Lamb, faced their own battles. Yet for Rebecca and JW, the NDA and the fear of retaliation left them feeling powerless. They watched from the sidelines, heartbroken, as the network's image remained untarnished, while the truth was buried beneath layers of secrecy and legal maneuvering. This silence created a dangerous environment where abuse could continue unchecked, hidden behind a veil of loyalty and fear. The emotional toll on Rebecca and JW was immense. Living under such oppressive constraints shattered their peace of mind. They struggled with guilt and helplessness, knowing that their silence protected the wrong people and endangered the innocent. For years they carried this burden alone, trapped in a legal web that prioritized image over justice. It was a cruel irony. Those who should have been champions of truth and faith were using the law to suppress it. The turning point came with the passing of Trey's Law, a groundbreaking piece of legislation in Texas that changed everything. This law rendered NDAs unenforceable in cases involving child abuse, breaking the chains that had silenced so many victims and witnesses for far too long. For Rebecca and JW, Trey's Law was a lifeline, offering a legal shield to finally speak out without fear of retribution. The weight that had pressed down on them for years was suddenly lifted. With this newfound freedom, Rebecca and JW began the painful but necessary process of revealing the hidden truths. They spoke out about what they had witnessed, shedding light on the abuse that had been concealed for so long. Their courage sent ripples through the family, the ministry, and the wider Christian community. It forced a reckoning with uncomfortable realities and challenged long-held loyalties. Trey's Law was more than just a legal victory. It was a cultural shift. It sent a clear message that no one, not even powerful families or influential ministries, could use legal documents to silence victims or hide abuse. It empowered survivors and whistleblowers everywhere to break their silence and demand justice. For too long, NDAs had been misused as shields to protect abusers and oppress the truth. Now, there was a pathway toward healing and accountability. Rebecca and JW's story became a symbol of resilience and the struggle for justice in the face of overwhelming odds. Their decision to come forward was not just about their own pain, but about protecting baby Lamb and preventing future harm. It was about breaking the cycle of silence that had allowed abuse to thrive in the shadows. Yet the aftermath was not easy. Speaking out meant risking family relationships, financial stability, and public scrutiny. The path to healing and restoration was fraught with challenges, but it was a necessary fight. Their bravery highlighted the critical need for transparency and accountability within powerful families and organizations. The legal chains that once bound them have been broken, but the emotional scars remain. Rebecca and JW's journey underscores how dangerous it is when secrecy and legal power are used to hide darkness. Their story serves as a powerful reminder that truth, no matter how painful, must be heard, and that the protection of the vulnerable must always come before preserving an image. In the end, the shocking allegations and the legal silencing that followed exposed not just individual failures, but systemic issues. It revealed how institutions and families can become entangled in protecting their reputation at the expense of justice. But it also showed the strength of those willing to stand up, break free, and fight for what is right, no matter the cost. Trey's Law marks a monumental shift in the fight for justice, especially for victims of child abuse who were long silenced by powerful legal agreements known as non-disclosure agreements, NDAs. For years, NDAs were weaponized by families, organizations, and corporations to hide the truth about abuse, preventing victims and witnesses from speaking out. This legal tool often prioritized protecting reputations over protecting the vulnerable, allowing abusers to continue their harmful behavior without accountability. Trey's Law emerged as a beacon of hope, signaling that this era of silence and secrecy would finally come to an end. The law was named after Trey, a young boy whose heartbreaking story became the catalyst for this change. Trey was a victim of sexual abuse, and his case highlighted how NDAs were being misused to cover up horrific acts. His story gained public attention and rallied advocates, lawmakers, and the community to push for reform. Trey's Law was born from a collective demand to stop the misuse of NDAs in cases involving child sexual abuse, ensuring that no legal contract could be used to suppress the voices of victims or those who sought to protect them. Before this law, many survivors and witnesses found themselves trapped in a nightmare where speaking the truth meant risking lawsuits, financial ruin, and social isolation. Families could pressure victims into silence with the promise of confidentiality, often with devastating psychological effects. The shame, guilt, and trauma were compounded by the enforced silence. Trey's Law finally recognizes that these agreements should never come at the expense of justice or healing. One of the most powerful aspects of Trey's Law is its clear stance. NDAs cannot be used to block victims or witnesses from sharing their experiences related to child sexual abuse. This legal breakthrough means that victims no longer have to live in fear of breaking contracts to tell their stories. It acknowledges the profound damage caused by enforced silence and prioritizes the well-being and rights of survivors above all else. The impact of Trey's Law goes beyond individual cases. It sends a message to families, organizations, and institutions that trying to hide abuse through legal means will no longer be tolerated. The law challenges the status quo and forces a reckoning with the culture of secrecy that has long protected abusers and harmed victims. This cultural shift is essential for creating safer environments for children and vulnerable individuals. For Rebecca Lamb and her husband J.W., Trey's Law was a lifeline that changed everything. Bound for years by a harsh NDA imposed by their own family and the Daystar network, they had been unable to speak about the abuse their niece suffered or the disturbing behavior they witnessed. The NDA had been a heavy chain, silencing their voices and leaving them powerless as the family's secrets remained buried. With the new law in place, Rebecca and JW found the courage and legal protection to finally break their silence and seek justice. Their decision to speak out after the passage of Trey's Law was not only a personal victory, but also a powerful act of courage that inspired others. They became part of a growing movement of survivors and advocates fighting to dismantle the barriers that silence victims. Their story highlights how important it is to have laws that protect the vulnerable and empower truth tellers. The journey to passing Trey's Law was neither quick nor easy. It took years of advocacy, awareness campaigns, and relentless efforts by survivors, activists, and lawmakers. They faced resistance from those who preferred to keep the status quo and protect reputations over accountability. But through unwavering determination, they pushed forward, bringing light to the dark corners where abuse had been hidden for generations. Trey's Law represents more than just a legal victory. It is a symbol of hope and justice for countless victims who have suffered in silence. It acknowledges that protecting children and survivors must be a society's highest priority. The law also encourages transparency and accountability, discouraging the use of NDAs as tools of oppression. The introduction of Trey's Law has had a ripple effect, encouraging other states and countries to consider similar legislation. It sets a precedent that victim protection and justice can prevail over secrecy and fear. For many survivors, this law offers a chance for healing and a pathway to reclaim their voices. However, the fight is far from over. While Trey's Law breaks significant legal barriers, many victims still face emotional, social, and systemic challenges. The trauma of abuse and the fear of backlash remain powerful obstacles. It is essential that Trey's Law is supported by comprehensive resources, including counseling, legal aid, and community support, to ensure survivors receive the care they deserve. Rebecca and JW's story also underscores the personal cost of these battles. Breaking silence after years of enforced silence is a painful process, filled with risks and uncertainty. But it is a necessary step toward justice and healing, not just for individuals, but for entire communities affected by abuse. Trey's Law also forces families and institutions to confront uncomfortable truths. It challenges the idea that reputation and public image should be prioritized over human dignity and safety. By empowering victims and witnesses, the law encourages a culture of accountability where abuse is exposed, addressed, and prevented. The broader significance of Trey's Law lies in its commitment to human rights and justice. It reinforces the principle that no one should be silenced when speaking out against harm, especially when it involves children. This legal protection is a vital step in breaking the cycle of abuse and neglect that has too often been hidden behind closed doors. In the aftermath of Trey's Law, we are witnessing a shift in how society deals with abuse and accountability. More survivors are coming forward, supported by legal frameworks that protect them from retaliation. Communities are becoming more vigilant, and organizations are under greater pressure to be transparent and responsible. The law also brings renewed focus to prevention and education, emphasizing the importance of creating safe environments for children. It promotes awareness about the signs of abuse and encourages early intervention, reducing the risk of long-term harm. Trey's Law ultimately embodies the power of collective action, showing how voices raised together can break down barriers and bring about meaningful change. It reminds us that justice is not just a legal concept, but a moral imperative to protect the innocent and uphold truth. For Rebecca, J.W., and many others like them, Trey's Law is more than just legislation. It is a lifeline, a shield, and a beacon of hope. It represents a future where victims are heard, abusers are held accountable, and silence no longer serves as a weapon to protect the guilty. Their courage to speak out has sparked a broader movement that continues to challenge the harmful use of NDAs and fights for a world where truth and justice prevail. Trey's Law is a powerful reminder that the fight against abuse is ongoing. But with every step forward, we move closer to a safer, more just society. The story of Daystar, once a shining beacon in Christian television, has taken a troubling turn. What began as a legacy of faith, hope, and spiritual outreach has been overshadowed by conflict, secrets, and painful revelations that threaten to unravel everything the Lamb family worked so hard to build. At the heart of this unraveling lies a complex battle for truth, a struggle that has pitted family members against one another and challenged the foundation of a ministry that millions trusted and admired. For years, Daystar was seen as a family-driven ministry, built on the strong partnership of Marcus and Joni Lamb. Together, they grew the network into one of the most influential Christian media platforms worldwide. Marcus was a charismatic leader, inspiring millions with his preaching and commitment to spreading the gospel. Joni stood faithfully by his side, supporting the ministry behind the scenes. Their partnership symbolized unity, faith, and shared vision. But the sudden death of Marcus in 2021 marked a turning point that shook the very core of Daystar's legacy. In the wake of Marcus's passing, the ministry faced unexpected turbulence. The shift in leadership exposed deep divisions within the family. Joni Lamb, now at the helm, began making decisions that stirred controversy and tension among family members. Her swift remarriage to Doug Weiss, a figure relatively new to the family and ministry, raised eyebrows and fueled suspicions. Many questioned whether this new alliance was motivated by love, power, or a combination of both. What followed was a series of escalating power struggles that fractured the family and, by extension, the ministry. Joni's increasingly centralized leadership style alienated her children and key family figures who had once been groomed to carry on Marcus's vision. Jonathan Lamb, Marcus and Joni's son, who had worked closely with his father and was expected to take a prominent role, found himself sidelined and excluded from vital decisions. The rift between Joni and Jonathan became public, casting a shadow over the ministry and raising concerns about its future. The tension wasn't just a private family matter. It spilled into Daystar's operations and reputation. Employees, ministry partners, and loyal viewers found themselves caught in the crossfire of family conflict. Questions about transparency, financial stewardship, and the network's direction became hot topics. The once united front began to crumble as trust eroded among supporters who feared the ministry was losing sight of its founding principles. One of the most painful and difficult issues that rocked the Daystar family was the handling of disturbing allegations of abuse within their own circle. For years, the Lamb family and Daystar network were accused of suppressing the truth about sexual abuse involving a young family member known as Baby Lamb. The accused was someone deeply trusted within the family and the ministry. These allegations struck at the heart of the family's image, shaking the faith of supporters and raising urgent questions about accountability and protection. Rebecca Lamb, daughter of Marcus and Joni, found herself in an impossible position. She and her husband J.W. were bound by a sweeping non-disclosure agreement that forbade them from speaking publicly about the abuse they witnessed and the painful family dynamics. This legal silence was crushing. It kept the truth hidden and silenced those who wanted to protect the innocent. The NDA was a barrier that protected the abuser's reputation at the expense of the victims and those who sought justice. Rebecca's struggle to break free from this silence became emblematic of the broader fight for truth within the family and the ministry. Her courage to speak out after the passage of Trey's Law, which rendered such NDAs unenforceable in cases of child abuse, ignited a new wave of reckoning. Her revelations not only brought long-hidden truths into the light, but also exposed the lengths to which some within the family went to protect their image. The battle for the truth has not been easy. Family relationships have been strained to the breaking point. Allegiances have shifted, and deep wounds have been reopened. Some family members accused Rebecca and others of betrayal, while others rallied behind her, urging transparency and justice. The ministry, once seen as a united front, now stands divided, its future uncertain. Beyond family drama, the controversy has had a ripple effect on Daystar's broader community. Donors have expressed concern about how their contributions are used, and some ministry partners have distanced themselves amid the turmoil. Viewers, once inspired by Daystar's message, are now questioning whether the network still reflects the values it once championed. The fallout has made it clear that reputation alone cannot sustain a ministry. Integrity and accountability are essential. At the center of this unraveling is a profound question about leadership and legacy. How does a family ministry navigate the storm of personal loss, internal conflict, and public scrutiny without losing its soul? The answer remains elusive. Joni's leadership has been both praised and criticized. While some admire her strength in stepping into a challenging role, others see her actions as consolidating power at the expense of family unity and ministry mission. Doug Weiss's rise alongside Joni has further complicated matters. His influence on programming, direction, and leadership style has been met with skepticism by those who worry the ministry is drifting away from its roots. The blending of personal and professional relationships has raised concerns about decision-making processes and transparency, casting doubts on the ministry's governance. Yet, amid the discord, there are glimmers of hope. Calls for healing, reconciliation, and renewed focus on the ministry's mission are growing louder. Many within the Daystar family and community understand that to move forward, wounds must be addressed openly and honestly. Rebuilding trust requires humility, accountability, and a willingness to prioritize the well-being of those the ministry serves above all else. The public's hunger for truth and integrity is unwavering. Supporters want to believe in a ministry that lives its values, that protects the vulnerable, and that leads with grace. The unraveling of Daystar's legacy is a cautionary tale about the dangers of secrecy and unchecked power, but it also offers an opportunity for renewal. The path ahead will demand courage from all involved. The battle for the truth is ongoing. It is not merely about exposing wrongdoing, but about restoring faith in family, in ministry, and in the power of transparency and justice. The Daystar story is a reminder that even the most beloved institutions can falter when shadowed by silence and division, but that healing is possible when truth is embraced. As the Lamb family faces these challenges, their choices will define not just their legacy, but the future of a ministry that has touched millions. Will they find a way to heal and unite, or will the fractures deepen, leaving behind a legacy forever altered by conflict? The world watches, hoping for a resolution that honors the faith and mission upon which Daystar was built.